Broadway Revealed is a behind-the-scenes look at Broadway. So it's the set designers, costume designers, lighting designers, sound designers, the guy that makes the shoes, the shops that make the costumes. It's everything that it takes to produce a Broadway show. Well, first thing you'll see all the prints or canvases. There's 89 prints, all on canvases ranging from 2 feet to 6 feet. Very detailed, high-resolution images that I made on cotton canvas. So they're very colorful, and you'll see all the detail in the designer studios and on the sets of their shows. Yeah, over about 7 years, I've made about 25 trips to New York, and I've been introduced to all these different designers. I started with just one designer, Marjorie Bradley Kellogg, and from there I've been kind of passed around through the Broadway community. They all know each other, and she turned me on to one person, and they turned me on to somebody else, and 89 photos later, I have this whole collection of images. I mean, what really strikes me about this project is that these are the creative people that make up Broadway. I mean, you go into a show, nobody knows that there's Arno, the shoe guy, and you know, where the props are made and how things get designed. Somebody has to design every single part of the show, and then all that stuff has to be manufactured. You have to make the sets and the costumes, and the lighting has to be done. And nobody really gets to see who's doing all this work. You might not know who Susan Hilfred is. She's a costume designer, but you'll know that she did Wicked. You'll know her show Wicked. So it's a real educational experience to come through, and after you've gone through this show, you'll see, oh my God, all these people, it takes all these people in order to do a Broadway show. Photographed Hair and Fela. Those were my two really big shows. Hair was great because it was during the sequence where they call all the audience down to the stage. So that was pretty cool to photograph. And on those shows too, they light up the whole theater. So it was nice for me in my 360-degree photography to photograph the whole theater. Yeah, being on the set of Spider-Man was great because that was the most complicated tech rehearsal I've ever seen. I mean, there were the dozens of computers, dozens of tables, dozens of people all working together to produce that show. I think it was one of the most complicated and certainly the most expensive show ever made on Broadway. So that was pretty cool to just see all the different things that it took to, you know, pull off a show like that with people flying around the theater and the live music, and so that was pretty cool. Yeah, this has been a quite different project for me, although I have done an artist series around the Bay Area, so I have been working on artists within their studio spaces, so I have been doing this type of format, but most people know me from my landscape work on Mount Diablo, and I'm out hiking around and photographing, and I've switched from trees to Broadway designers, so it's quite a switch, and it's fun for me to be in the theater photographing. It's fun for me to be dealing with people. Trees don't talk, they don't move, they don't complain. Where the people have been, it's been quite a series, you know, getting in touch with people, finding them in their studios. These people travel all over the world. They're all pretty busy. So getting in touch with people, getting into their studios, dealing with them saying, okay, you've got 7 minutes to take this photograph, or 15 minutes before a show starts. So there's been a lot of constraints on each photograph of you know, what I need to do in order to produce the photograph. So that's been challenging, and it's been different, but I love it. I've been photographing for 49 years. So I've done everything: landscape, people, oceans, mountains, deserts. And it was really nice to have a project focused in New York. I love New York. I like going there. I like the food. I like to be in New York. So this was a great opportunity to be there, meeting all these people. And I got to meet just, you know, the people that create Broadway. I mean, it's all the creative people. So that was a great, fun thing to do. And you never know, every shoot is different. You never know who you're going to run into, you know, the lighting conditions. I like that challenge, and especially after being in photography for so long, I'm pretty good at shooting landscapes. I know there's really no landscape that I can't photograph, but I ran into huge technical difficulties in the theater. The American Idiot stuff with the lighting was very challenging to photograph, so I like the challenge. Broadway is a huge draw. I think it's one of the biggest, it brings people in from all over the country. And you know, we have Broadway shows that come here to San Francisco and the Bay Area and Las Vegas, but you might get 1 or 2 shows at a time, where in New York you have dozens of choices. You have all the off-Broadway, you have all the Broadway stuff. It's the center of the universe, I think, as far as theater goes, and everything is there. Everybody's there, and it's, I think it's very exciting. And the great theaters, the theaters are beautiful in New York. They're all these old, restored theaters, and a lot of them are really gorgeous. This photograph, as in all the photographs, are made in segments, 8 segments. So this would be one segment right here. The fisheye lens is turned on vertical, and I take this one segment. And this particular photograph is interesting because if anybody knows the red steps in Times Square, this is where the ball drops. These are covered with hundreds of people all day and night long. And this shot was taken one night after a show about 10 o'clock at night. It was around 10 degrees. And there were probably 200 people in this photograph. And I photoshopped out all the people. I took many, many photographs. If this was the section, I might have taken 25 photographs in this one section. And as somebody standing right in front of me would take a step to the left or right, I would shoot a photograph. And then all those photographs are layered up in Photoshop. And I also put in my own billboard up here. If you see behind the curtain billboard, I'd never be able to get a billboard in Times Square, so I stuck that in myself. This is an interesting photograph. Paul Huntley, the wig maker, and now everybody wears wigs, and if you look at the different, you can see the names on the different head molds that they make of each person before they make the wigs, but because the microphones come down through the hair, pretty much I think everybody wears wigs. So this is just a cool photo because you can see Paul sewing up a wig of Angela Lansbury, and then you can see all the yak hair and all the different types of hair that they have. And there's a photograph of Paul over there in his very first job, and I think it's visually an interesting photograph, plus who gets to see how wigs are made. This was probably my most difficult photograph to make, besides the fact that it's right after the world premiere of American Idiot, and I had to walk out on stage with the whole audience going crazy and line the cast members up. They had just taken their bow, and then they were standing here for another 5 minutes. But it's made up of many, many photographs. You can see the light. There's an exposure for the lights, an exposure for the stage, an exposure for the people, an exposure for the shadow of the theater. Each different part of the photograph has a different exposure, and then along with the different segments, those have to be layered together. And this is also a very tense moment to walk out on the stage with a whole audience, a whole stage or a theater full of people, and not make a mistake. But I think the photograph came out great, and it captures that excitement of here's the world premiere of American Idiot, and the actors are all beaming and the audience are all going kind of crazy after seeing such a great show. It's pretty neat to see people looking at the photographs. So far it's been, people are really interested in Broadway, and they're interested in the people that make up Broadway, and everybody seems to like behind the scenes. So it's very cool to be walking around looking at people, looking at the details in the photographs and noticing that in the Chicago photograph, for instance, of William Ivy Long, the costume designer, there's only 4 actors, 4 dancers in the photograph, and yet it looks like there's around 20 people, and nobody seems to notice that. I've used the same 4 people over and over in the photograph. So I kind of like seeing what people notice and what they don't. And these photographs are kind of brain teasers. 360-degree view. The left side meets the right side, and I've flattened out space, so I like looking at people. I like their confusion, not quite being able to realize, how was this made? I like the illusion of it. Theater is such an illusion, and it's fun to work with imagery that also is a bit of an illusion. These photographs are taken over time. They're not snapshots. They're not a photograph that happens in an instant. It's a photograph in some cases that have been taken over an hour or more. The show is starting here at the Bedford Gallery in Walnut Creek, and then we'll be traveling to New York, and it's going to be at Lincoln Center in February of 2014. So I think it's very cool that the show starts in Walnut Creek and ends up in New York. And traveling around other parts of the country too. It should be shown in other places as well.